Rafi was a quiet farmer who lived near a small village at the edge of rolling hills. His land was not large, but it was full of life. Rows of grapevines stretched across the field, their leaves bright and green under the early morning sun. Every day, Rafi woke before sunrise, carrying his tools with him. He walked through the soft soil, listening to the birds chirping and feeling the cool wind on his face. Farming was not easy, but it was peaceful, and Rafi loved the simplicity of his life. The grapes needed constant care. He checked each plant carefully, removing dry leaves, pruning weak branches, and making sure the soil around them stayed soft. It was a slow and careful work, but Rafi found satisfaction in it. One sunny morning, Rafi was working near a section of the vineyard that had not been touched for many years. The soil there was thicker and harder than the other parts of the field, and he noticed it while digging a small hole to plant a new vine. His shovel struck something hard under the earth. The sound of metal against metal echoed through the quiet vineyard. Rafi froze. He lowered his shovel and brushed the dirt away with his hands. There, under a thin layer of soil, he saw a flat surface that was different from the usual rocks and stones. It was cold, smooth, and heavy-looking. Rafi's brow furrowed as he cleared more soil. The surface became more visible. It was square and made of iron. The edges were thick, and in the center, there was a rusted handle. Rafi stepped back and examined it closely. He had worked on this vineyard for more than 20 years, and he had never seen anything like it. The vineyard had been in his family for generations. His father and grandfather had farmed this same land, and they never mentioned an iron door beneath the soil. Rafi felt a strange mixture of excitement and fear. Why would there be a door hidden under the vines? He wiped his hands on his worn shirt and touched the handle. It felt cold and heavy. He pulled it with all his strength. The door did not move. Rafi pushed harder, using his full weight. The iron hatch shook slightly, but it remained closed. It was heavier than he expected. His curiosity grew stronger, but so did his nervousness. Something about this door felt unusual, almost like it had been waiting for someone to find it. Rafi ran to his small house near the edge of the vineyard. He grabbed a sturdy crowbar, his heart beating faster with every step. Back at the vineyard, he placed the crowbar under the edge of the hatch. Slowly, he pushed. The iron door groaned, the sound sharp and echoing. Dirt fell from the edges, and a small crack opened. With one final push, the hatch lifted, revealing a dark hole beneath the soil. A rush of cold air rose from the opening, carrying the smell of damp earth and stone. Rafi stepped back, staring into the darkness. Stone steps descended from the hole, disappearing into blackness. The smell was ancient and strong, like the earth had held secrets for hundreds of years. Rafi's hands trembled. This was not a simple pit. Someone had built this place long ago. He felt a shiver of excitement. Something was hidden here, something no one had ever discovered. Rafi debated for a moment. He could close the door and pretend he had never seen it. He could go back to his quiet life among the grapevines. But curiosity is a powerful feeling. Rafi could not resist the urge to see what was inside. He returned to his house and found an old lantern. Lighting it, he carried it back to the edge of the hole. The small flame danced, casting shadows on the stone steps. He took a deep breath and began to descend. Each step echoed softly, the sound traveling into the darkness like whispers. The walls around him were made of stone and perfectly shaped, clearly worked by human hands. Rafi's eyes adjusted to the dim light. He saw marks carved into the walls, strange symbols and shapes that he could not understand. They looked old, very old, but they were still clear. Rafi felt both fear and wonder. He had found something extraordinary under his vineyard, something that no one in his village knew about. As he continued down the steps, the tunnel widened slightly. The smell of earth grew stronger. The walls were cold and damp. Water had dripped in small places, leaving dark streaks on the stones. Rafi held the lantern high, his eyes scanning every corner. He could not see the end of the tunnel. It stretched forward like a secret path waiting to be discovered. Rafi's mind raced with questions. Who had built this place? Why had it been hidden under the vineyard? And what could be waiting at the end? The tunnel was narrow, and Rafi had to move carefully. Loose stones lay on the ground, and his feet made small echoes as he walked. The lantern's light flickered, throwing moving shadows along the walls. Rafi felt as if the walls themselves were watching him. He swallowed hard but kept going. He wanted answers. He needed to know what lay at the end of this secret path. After a few minutes, Rafi saw a faint glow ahead. It was not the lantern. It seemed to come from deeper inside. His heart began to beat faster. The glow grew slowly brighter as he walked forward. The stone walls became smoother, and the tunnel widened into a larger chamber. Rafi's lantern revealed the room in small sections, each step uncovering more of the mystery. He saw old wooden crates stacked in corners. Some had markings on them. Dust covered the floor, and small plants had begun to grow where light rarely reached. Rafi stepped carefully into the center of the chamber. The glow came from a small opening in the far wall. It was a window of some sort, letting in sunlight from above, though it was covered with thick bars. The light illuminated an object in the middle of the room. Rafi's eyes widened. It was a chest, old and wooden, with iron bands holding it together. It seemed untouched for decades. Dust lay on its surface like a soft blanket, and cobwebs hung in corners. The chest was small but heavy-looking. Rafi approached it slowly. His hands shook as he reached for the latch. Before touching it, he took a step back. He had never felt this mix of fear and excitement. The chest seemed to hold something very important, something powerful enough to be hidden under the vineyard for so many years. Rafi took a deep breath and prepared to open it. At that moment, the air around him seemed colder. The tunnel felt alive, as if it had been waiting for him all this time. Rafi's curiosity was now stronger than ever. He could not turn back. He lifted the latch of the chest and prepared to see what secrets the vineyard had been hiding for so long. Rafi's hands hovered over the latch of the chest. His heart pounded loudly in his chest, echoing against the stone walls of the chamber. The lantern light flickered slightly, casting moving shadows that danced along the floor. He could feel the weight of this moment. Something inside the chest had waited for him for many years, untouched and hidden beneath the vineyard. His mind raced with questions. Could it be treasure, old documents, or something more mysterious? He did not know, but he had to find out. Taking a deep breath, Rafi lifted the latch. It was stiff with rust, but after a few seconds of effort, it gave way. The chest creaked as the lid slowly opened. Dust rose into the air, and the smell of old wood filled the chamber. Rafi's eyes adjusted to the darkness inside. At first, he could not see much, but then he noticed carefully arranged objects. Inside the chest were several small packages wrapped in faded cloth. Some looked like old scrolls, tied with thin strings. Others were small metal objects that glinted in the lantern light. At the very top, there was a thick, leather-bound book. Its cover was cracked with age, but the edges were decorated with small carvings. Rafi reached for it gently, careful not to damage anything. He lifted the book and sat down on a stone step to examine it. The cover was smooth and cold under his fingers. He opened the book, and the pages were filled with handwriting. The letters were old, but surprisingly clear. It was a language Rafi did not recognize at first. He flipped through the pages slowly, trying to understand. Some of the pages had drawings of plants and animals. Others had strange diagrams, almost like maps. There were lists of numbers and names, but Rafi could not make sense of them immediately. One thing was clear. Whoever had written this book was very careful and had recorded many things with great detail. Rafi's curiosity grew. He carefully put the book aside and picked up one of the wrapped packages. It was small and light. He untied the string and opened the cloth. Inside was a small, round metal object. It was shiny and smooth, unlike anything Rafi had seen before. He turned it in his hands. It looked like a coin, but the designs on it were unusual. One side had a symbol that looked like a tree with long roots, and the other side had shapes that reminded him of stars in the sky. The metal felt warm, almost alive in his hand. Rafi wondered how it had stayed so perfect after so many years underground. He put the coin back carefully and opened another package. This one contained a small key, simple but well-made. Its design was unlike any key Rafi had used for his house or barn. The metal was old, but strong, and it fit perfectly in his hand. He tried to imagine what it could open. Perhaps another door. Another hidden place? He felt a thrill run through him. The vineyard had more secrets than he had ever imagined. Rafi continued to explore the chest. Each package revealed something new. There were small gemstones, some bright and clear, others dark and mysterious. There were tiny tools, strange and delicate, as if made for careful work. And then, at the very bottom, he found another piece of paper. It was larger than the others, folded many times. He opened it carefully and discovered it was a map. The paper was old, almost fragile, but the ink was still visible. The map showed his village and the vineyard, but there were lines leading far beyond the fields. There were markings on hills, rivers, and forests. Rafi could not understand all of it, but he knew this map was important. The longer Rafi looked at the chest, the more he realized that this was not a simple collection of objects. Each item seemed connected. The book, the coins, the key, the map. Together, they were part of something larger, something carefully hidden. But why? And who had placed them here? The questions in Rafi's mind grew, but there were no answers yet. He would have to explore more to understand. Rafi decided to take the book with him to study it later. He wrapped it carefully in cloth to protect it. He left the other items in the chest for now, not wanting to carry too much. He lifted the chest's lid back and looked around the chamber. The light from the lantern revealed more of the room. Along the walls, he noticed more markings, some that he had missed before. They seemed like symbols, etched deeply into the stone. Rafi traced them with his fingers. The shapes were repeated in patterns, almost like a language or code. The thought made him shiver. Whoever had made this chamber had not only hidden objects but also left clues. The place was alive with secrets, waiting for someone to understand them. Rafi knew he had to be careful. He could not rush. The vineyard was his life, but this hidden chamber had changed everything. He sat down on the floor and thought. The map, the key, the objects, they could mean treasure, but they could also mean knowledge, or even something magical. He did not know what to expect, but he felt a strange connection to the place. It was as if the earth itself had chosen him to discover this secret. Hours passed as Rafi examined the chest and the markings. He felt tired, but also excited. He realized that the vineyard held more than just grapes. It held history, mystery, and perhaps answers to questions that no one had thought to ask. He made a plan. Tomorrow, he would return with more light and more tools. He would explore the chamber carefully, following the markings and the map. There was a feeling inside him that this was only the beginning. The hatch, the chest, and everything inside had a story, and Rafi was determined to uncover it. Finally, as the sun began to set outside, Rafi closed the chest carefully and covered it. He climbed the stone steps and pushed the iron hatch back into place. The heavy door fell into the ground with a solid thud. Rafi felt the earth close behind him, keeping its secrets for now. But he knew he would return. The vineyard had shown him a hidden world, and he could not ignore it. He left the vineyard quietly, carrying the book with him, his mind full of questions and his heart full of anticipation. That night, Rafi could hardly sleep. He kept thinking about the objects, the map, and the symbols. Who had hidden them? And why? The village slept peacefully, unaware of the secrets beneath the vineyard. Rafi stared at the book in his hands, feeling its weight and importance. Tomorrow, he would begin the journey to understand the secrets of the vineyard. Something extraordinary had been hidden beneath the soil for decades, waiting for the right person to find it. And now, Rafi had found it. The next morning, Rafi woke before sunrise. His mind was still full of the chest and its strange contents. He had spent the night thinking about the map, the key, and the old book. He carefully packed the book into a small bag, along with a notebook, some pencils, and the lantern. Today, he decided, he would follow the map and see where it led. The vineyard was quiet as he walked through it. Birds chirped softly, and the grape leaves shimmered in the gentle morning light. Rafi felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. He had lived in this village all his life, but he had never imagined that his own vineyard could hold secrets like this. Every step he took made him feel like he was walking into a different world, one hidden beneath the ordinary fields he had tended for years. Rafi carried the map carefully, studying it with each step. The lines led from the vineyard to the hills beyond his home. There were marks indicating forests, small streams, and rocks that seemed to act as landmarks. Some marks were difficult to understand, while others were clear. Rafi realized that whoever had drawn this map had intended for someone to follow it with care. The route was not easy, but it was possible to trace it through the hills and forests. As he walked, Rafi kept glancing at the trees and rocks around him. The map showed a large tree with twisted branches at the edge of the forest. When he reached it, he stopped. The tree was old and wide, with thick roots that spread over the ground. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, creating patterns of light and shadow on the ground. Rafi checked the map again. The marks on the paper seemed to match the shapes of the tree and the stones around it. He felt a thrill of excitement. This was the first step in his journey. Under the twisted tree, Rafi found something that made his heart race. The ground was slightly raised, forming a small mound. It looked natural at first, but then he noticed a small stone that was different from the others. It was smoother and darker. He pushed it aside and found a shallow hole beneath. The map had led him here. Carefully, he reached inside and pulled out a small, folded piece of parchment. He opened it and found it was another note, written in the same hand as the book in the chest. The note contained simple instructions: follow the path of the river until the twin rocks. There you will find the next mark. Rafi's mind raced. Someone had hidden these clues in a way that required thought and patience. It was almost like a game, but one with serious importance. He folded the note and put it in his pocket. The river mentioned on the note was visible on the map, running through the forest nearby. Rafi moved carefully through the forest, keeping the map in his hands. The trees were thick, and the ground was uneven, with roots and stones making the path challenging. Sunlight barely reached the forest floor, creating shadows that seemed to move as he walked. The sounds of birds and small animals surrounded him, but he kept his focus on the map. After an hour of walking, he reached the river. It was clear and cool, flowing gently over smooth stones. Following the river, Rafi noticed two large rocks standing side by side, just as the note had described. They were unusual in shape, almost like silent guardians watching over the forest. He approached them carefully. The space between the rocks was narrow, and the sunlight fell softly in the gap. Rafi examined the ground and noticed small marks etched into the stones, faint but visible. They were symbols similar to the ones in the book from the chest. Rafi took out the key he had found in the chest. The symbols seemed to indicate a small lock hidden in the rocks. After a careful search, he found a tiny iron box embedded in the side of one of the stones. It had a small keyhole. His hands trembled with anticipation. He inserted the key, and it fit perfectly. Turning it slowly, he heard a soft click. The box opened. Inside the box was another coin, similar to the one he had found in the chest. But this one was different. It had new symbols engraved on it and a small note tucked underneath. The note read, "The journey is long, but patience will bring understanding. Take the coin to the high hill at sunset." Rafi carefully took the coin and folded the note. He looked at the map again. The high hill was marked clearly, a place that rose above the forests and fields. He felt a mixture of wonder and excitement. Whoever had hidden these objects had created a careful path, a journey that required attention, courage, and intelligence. Rafi's heart beat faster. He had no idea what he would find at the high hill, but he knew it would be important. He followed the river until the forest began to thin, and the sunlight grew stronger. Birds sang overhead, and the soft wind carried the smell of earth and flowers. The path led him through small clearings where wild plants grew, and he had to step carefully to avoid slipping on wet grass. Each step made him feel more connected to the land, more aware that he was following a story written long ago. Finally, Rafi reached the base of the high hill. He paused to catch his breath and looked around. From here, he could see the village far below, the vineyards stretching like green carpets, and the river winding through the fields. The view was beautiful, but Rafi's focus was on the hill itself. The top was rocky and uneven, with patches of grass and small trees. The map showed a small stone formation at the very peak. Rafi began to climb. The hill was steeper than it looked, and he had to use his hands to steady himself on the rocks. His legs ached, but he continued. Each step brought him closer to the top and to the next secret. As he climbed, he noticed small carvings on some of the stones. They matched the symbols in the book and on the coins. It was clear that he was on the right path. At last, he reached the summit. The wind blew softly across the hill, carrying a fresh, earthy smell. In the center of the peak was the stone formation marked on the map. Rafi approached it carefully. Between the stones, there was a small hollow, just large enough to hold the coin. He placed the coin inside. The wind seemed to grow slightly stronger, rustling his hair and clothes. Rafi waited, but nothing happened immediately. Then, slowly, a small stone panel shifted on the ground in front of him, revealing a narrow opening. A soft glow came from within. Rafi's eyes widened. The journey had led him to a hidden chamber at the top of the hill. He realized that the path from the vineyard to the forest, river, twin rocks, and now the hill had been carefully designed to prepare him for this moment. Whatever was inside was waiting for him, and he had followed the instructions exactly. Rafi took a deep breath and stepped closer to the opening. The glow grew brighter as he peered inside. His curiosity was stronger than ever, and he knew that the next discovery would change everything he thought he knew about his vineyard, his village, and perhaps even his own life. The adventure that began with an iron hatch beneath the vines had led him here, to a secret chamber at the peak of a high hill. With a careful step, he entered the chamber, the light from the opening guiding his way. Inside, he could see objects, shapes, and walls that gleamed faintly in the soft glow. Rafi's heart raced. He had no idea what he would find, but he knew one thing: this was only the beginning. The journey was far from over, and the secrets of the vineyard were only revealing themselves one by one. Rafi stepped cautiously into the chamber at the top of the hill. The small opening widened into a room carved entirely from smooth stone. Light filtered in from narrow cracks in the walls, casting a gentle glow over the floor. The air smelled of earth and stone, cool and still, as if this place had been untouched for decades. Rafi held his lantern high, illuminating the strange shapes around him. The first thing he noticed were the walls. Symbols and markings covered them completely, like a secret language. Some were circles, others were triangles, and some looked like trees or animals. They were carved carefully, with precision and care. Rafi ran his fingers over the symbols, feeling the grooves of the stone beneath his fingertips. Whoever had made this chamber had wanted someone to find it, but only someone careful and observant could understand it. In the center of the room was a pedestal. On it lay a small, shining object that glimmered even in the soft light. Rafi's heart raced. He approached slowly and saw that it was a crystal orb, smooth and round, resting in a carved stone bowl. The orb reflected the light of the lantern, creating patterns that danced on the walls. Rafi could feel something special about it. It was beautiful, unlike anything he had ever seen, and it seemed to hold a quiet power. Around the pedestal were other objects, carefully placed. There were small jars filled with colored powders, tiny tools that looked delicate but precise, and folded pieces of paper. Rafi picked up one of the papers and opened it. The handwriting was the same as the notes and the book he had seen before. It read, The path you follow is not for gold or riches. It is for knowledge, for understanding what has been hidden. Only with patience and care will the truth reveal itself. Rafi felt a shiver of awe. This was more than a treasure. It was a secret of the past, a story waiting to be discovered. He looked at the orb again, wondering if it held part of that knowledge. He touched it carefully. The stone bowl was cool, but the orb felt warm beneath his fingers. A soft vibration ran through his hand, gentle but steady. Rafi realized that this object was important, perhaps even magical in a way he could not yet understand. As he explored further, Rafi noticed a small door at the far end of the chamber. It was carved from the same stone as the walls, and it had no handle. Instead, there were symbols etched across its surface, similar to those on the walls and in the book. Rafi compared the symbols to the notes he had found. He remembered the coins and the key, and suddenly it clicked. The symbols on the door matched the markings on the coin from the twin rocks. He took the coin from his pocket and held it against the door. The symbols aligned perfectly. Slowly, the stone shifted, sliding to one side. A soft grinding sound echoed through the chamber as a hidden passage opened. Rafi's heart pounded. He had discovered another secret within the hilltop chamber. The passage was narrow, descending downward into darkness. He held his lantern high and stepped forward carefully. The passage was cool and damp. The walls were lined with carvings that seemed to tell a story. Some showed people carrying objects, planting trees, or working in fields. Others showed strange symbols and patterns. Rafi studied them carefully. It felt like the chamber and passage had been built by someone who wanted to leave a record for future generations. The more he looked, the more he realized how much knowledge had been hidden in this place. After walking for several minutes, the passage opened into another room. This one was larger, with a high ceiling and walls that curved like a dome. In the center was a table, carved from stone, and on it lay several scrolls and books. Rafi carefully approached and began examining them. The scrolls contained drawings of plants, stars, and animals. Some pages had diagrams of tools and machines, while others seemed to contain maps of the area around the village. The books were old, with pages yellowed by time, but the writing was clear. Rafi felt a growing sense of excitement. These writings were not just notes. They were a collection of knowledge from long ago. He realized that the person who had hidden these objects had been careful to preserve everything. They had wanted someone worthy, someone patient, to discover the secrets and learn from them. Rafi understood that he had been chosen, in a way, to continue their work. As he read, Rafi noticed one scroll that was different. It had diagrams that seemed to combine symbols with numbers and shapes. He studied it closely, tracing the lines with his fingers. It appeared to show how the vineyard, the hills, and the forests were connected. There were hidden paths, secret locations, and markers that matched the symbols he had already seen. Rafi realized that the vineyard itself was part of a larger plan. The hidden chamber beneath the vines and the hilltop chamber were connected, as if the land held a secret network waiting to be discovered. Rafi sat down on the stone floor, feeling the weight of what he had uncovered. This was more than a mystery. It was a legacy. The knowledge in the books and scrolls was valuable not for gold, but for understanding the land, the past, and perhaps even the future. He felt proud and humble at the same time. He had never imagined that his quiet life as a farmer would lead him to such a discovery. As the sun began to lower in the sky, Rafi noticed that the light through the cracks in the chamber walls created patterns on the floor. They aligned with the symbols on the pedestal and the orb. Rafi moved the orb slightly and saw that it reflected the sunlight onto the walls, illuminating certain symbols more brightly. He studied the patterns carefully, realizing that the light itself was part of the message. Whoever had built this place had designed it to work with the sun, to reveal secrets at certain times of day. Hours passed as Rafi examined the chamber. He took careful notes in his notebook, drawing the symbols and copying what he could from the scrolls. He did not want to disturb the place, but he wanted to remember everything. He felt that every object, every symbol, and every pattern had meaning. The discovery was far greater than he had imagined, and he knew that he had only just begun to understand it. Finally, as the evening approached, Ruffy carefully placed the orb back on the pedestal. He made sure the scrolls and books were arranged as they had been. The chambers were secrets of the past, but he felt responsible for preserving them. He left the hilltop chamber slowly, carrying the sense of wonder and responsibility with him. The hidden chambers, the symbols, the objects, and the knowledge they contained had changed his life forever. Ruffy returned to the village quietly, thinking about the discoveries he had made. The vineyard, the forest, the twin rocks, the hilltop, and the chambers, they were all connected in a story of patience, wisdom, and careful planning. He knew that tomorrow, he would return again. There was more to learn, more to explore, and more secrets waiting to be uncovered. The adventure that began with a simple iron hatch had grown into something extraordinary, a journey of discovery and wonder that had only just begun. The next morning, Ruffy could hardly wait to return to the hilltop chamber. The sun was just rising, painting the sky with shades of orange and gold. Birds sang softly, and the vineyard below seemed peaceful, unaware of the secrets hidden beneath and above it. Ruffy carried his lantern, the notebook, and the crystal orb carefully in his bag. He knew that today he would uncover the final secret of the chambers. The climb to the hilltop was steep, but Ruffy moved quickly. He followed the path he had memorized from the map and the notes. The twin rocks and the forest felt familiar now, like landmarks guiding him home. When he reached the high hill, he paused to catch his breath. The summit glowed in the morning light, and the small stone formation awaited him. Ruffy placed the coin he had found the day before into the hollow once more. The stone panel shifted, revealing the entrance to the chamber. Inside, the room was brighter than he had remembered. Sunlight streamed through the narrow cracks, illuminating the symbols on the walls. The crystal orb on the pedestal seemed to glow more intensely, reflecting colors like a rainbow across the chamber. Ruffy felt a shiver of excitement. He had explored the hidden objects, the scrolls and the books, but now he had a feeling that today he would see the most important secret of all. He approached the pedestal carefully. The orb vibrated gently in his hands as he lifted it. Ruffy noticed a small indentation in the base of the pedestal. The orb fit perfectly into it. As soon as he placed the orb, a soft light spread across the room. The symbols on the walls began to shine, one by one, revealing patterns and shapes that Ruffy had not noticed before. Lines connected the symbols, forming a map of knowledge, showing how the vineyard, the hills, the rivers, and the forests were connected. Ruffy realized that the chambers, the objects, and the markings were not just a puzzle. They were a guide, showing him a way to understand the land in a way no one else had. The symbols revealed locations where water flowed beneath the earth, where the soil was richest, and where plants would grow strongest. He understood that the person who had built this had wanted to preserve knowledge about the land itself, a secret meant to help future generations. As he studied the glowing symbols, a soft rumble echoed through the chamber. The floor shifted slightly, revealing a hidden stairway beneath the pedestal. Ruffy's heart raced. He had not expected another level, but he felt a sense of destiny. He descended the stairs carefully, holding his lantern high. The walls were smooth, lined with markings that now glowed faintly, guiding his steps. At the bottom, he found a smaller chamber, more intimate and serene than the ones above. In the center of this room was a small pool of clear water. It reflected the light from above, creating shimmering patterns on the walls. Around the pool were stones with inscriptions, describing the principles of growth, care, and patience. Ruffy realized that this was the ultimate secret. It was not gold or treasure, but knowledge and wisdom. The previous keeper of the chambers had created a system to teach anyone who followed the path how to care for the land, how to grow healthy crops, and how to live in harmony with nature. Ruffy knelt beside the pool and touched the water. It was cool and pure. The inscriptions seemed to tell a story of generations, of farmers and caretakers who had worked the land carefully, learning from the earth itself. The knowledge was hidden, not for selfish gain, but for those who were willing to seek it with patience and dedication. Ruffy felt honored. He understood now why the iron hatch had been buried in his vineyard, why the chambers had been hidden in the hilltop, and why he had been chosen to find them. As he explored the chamber, Rafi noticed small seeds placed around the pool. They were not ordinary seeds. Each was labeled with a symbol that matched the diagrams in the books he had studied. He realized that these seeds were part of the lesson. By planting them in the right places, following the symbols and maps, he could restore the land to its full potential. Rafi understood that the secret was practical as well as spiritual. Knowledge and action went together. Rafi spent the entire day in the chamber, studying the inscriptions, the books, and the seeds. He made careful notes, copying the symbols and diagrams into his notebook. He realized that the vineyard was only the beginning. The forests, the rivers, and the hills surrounding his village all held secrets and lessons. By following the guidance left in the chambers, he could learn to care for the land in a way that no one else could. As the sun began to set, Rafi placed the crystal orb back on the pedestal. The light gradually dimmed, but the symbols on the walls remained faintly visible, as if the chamber itself remembered his presence. He took one last look around, feeling gratitude for the wisdom he had discovered. The journey had begun with curiosity, with a simple iron hatch beneath his vineyard, but it had led him to a treasure far greater than gold or jewels. When Rafi emerged from the hilltop chamber, the night was falling. Stars filled the sky, and a cool breeze moved through the hills. He looked at the vineyard below, the land he had worked all his life, and he understood it differently now. It was part of a larger story, connected to generations before him and to the land itself. He felt a deep sense of purpose. The knowledge he had uncovered would guide him not only in farming but in life. Rafi returned to his home, carrying his notebook and a few small seeds. He decided to plant them carefully in the vineyard, following the instructions he had learned. The rest of the knowledge he would keep safe, studying it slowly and sharing it with those who were ready to learn. He realized that the greatest treasure was understanding, patience, and care, and that by applying these principles, he could make the land thrive like never before. In the days that followed, Rafi worked with renewed energy and focus. He planted the special seeds, followed the guidance from the chambers, and observed the land carefully. He discovered that some areas of the vineyard had richer soil, hidden streams of water, and sunlight patterns that he had never noticed before. By combining the knowledge from the chambers with his own experience, he saw the vineyard grow stronger, the grapes fuller and more vibrant than ever. Word spread through the village of the changes in Rafi's vineyard. People were curious, but he did not reveal all his secrets. He shared only small lessons with those who were willing to learn, teaching them patience, observation, and care. Over time, the vineyard became a place of learning and inspiration, a living testament to the wisdom hidden beneath the iron hatch. Rafi often thought about the chambers, the crystal orb, and the hidden notes. He realized that the greatest mysteries were not meant to be rushed. They were discovered step by step, through careful observation, courage, and patience. The journey had begun with a simple discovery beneath the vineyard, but it had led to knowledge that would last for generations. And so, Rafi's life changed forever. The vineyard thrived, the land flourished, and the secrets he had uncovered remained a guiding light. The iron hatch, the chambers, the crystal orb, and the notes had given him more than curiosity. They had given him understanding, purpose, and the knowledge to care for the land in ways he had never imagined. Rafi knew that this was only the beginning of a new chapter, one in which he would continue to learn, grow, and protect the wisdom hidden within the earth. The sun set over the hills, painting the sky with soft colors, and Rafi looked at the vineyard with pride and wonder. He had discovered a secret that would change his life, and in doing so, he had found a treasure far greater than anything he could have imagined. It was the treasure of knowledge, patience, and harmony with the land, a treasure that would guide him forever.